day-to-day process. And I also like to say, I try to build systems that don't rely on people's memories, because we're all fallible. We can all forget a step. So how can we build a process that if you're having that again takes that memory piece out of it?
Yeah, I think that's it. So the systems essentially drive the process. Instead of making everybody memorize every piece of the process, systems drive that process, but you still understand and map it so that way they have it in context, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now, having seen it from multiple places and knowing that, a lot of our listeners are founder-led businesses, typically range from, up to 500 employees. So they go through a lot of different growth stages and experience lots of things. Where's a good place for an individual to start when they want to start thinking about operational efficiencies and how they start getting their mind right about that? Any specific recommendations you'd put on the leaders list?
Yeah, I mean, I would have them pause and sit down and be thoughtful about like, what are and start with three. What are the top three things where you're having the biggest pain points around efficiency, or the things that are giving you the most stress, the most anxiety, the most frustration, just the things that you feel like aren't working, and write those things down. And then depending on the size of your team, obviously if you've got a team of 10, it's different than if you have a team of 500, but have some of your team do the same thing and incorporate people from different departments and different roles. Also mention the three things for them that they see as the biggest hurdles to efficiency. What are their pain points? What are not working well? And have a team meeting on it and do some brainstorming. I think a cross-functional meeting like that is super helpful. And then try to identify, all right, after you've done some brainstorming, like what are the biggest three priorities? What do we think can make the biggest impact on the organization, or what can contribute the most towards our goals or towards our vision? And then pick one to start with and get some ideas, again, cross-functionally. And then don't try and tackle them all at once. Keep that list and keep that brainstorming, keep the results of that, but decide on one. Okay, we all said this is the most important place to start. We're going to start there. We're going to implement these things. We're going to work on this, and then we're going to check back in and see, is it working? Are things better? And a lot of times with a new process, it's not just in and then done. It takes people a minute to adapt to the new process, to start using the new process, get comfortable with it. You hear the adage, it takes 3 weeks to make a habit. I've heard, people need to hear something 7 times before they think they've heard it for the first time, and that you have to be aware of that, because when you're trying to incorporate change, you have the early adopters, but you also have people who are like, I've heard this before. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to do anything until I see if this new thing is here to stay and if I really have to do it. So you've got a breadth of responses you're going to get from the team on how willing they are to adapt a new process too. So you've got to, roll it out after, but you're going to have better buy-in when you incorporate more people in that brainstorming process as well, which is really important. And then after it's been rolled out, you want to check back in. And again, cross-functionally, is this doing what we hoped it would do? If not, do we need to make any tweaks? And then do that and make sure that feels solid, feels like it's working, and is part of the process before then you jump into number 2. Because if you try and change 6 big things all at once, then everyone's looking all around and no one knows what to focus on, and you don't move the needle that way.
Yeah, it's so funny. I love your point about, and what often gets forgotten is, like, everybody thinks about, okay, I got to do a research phase, I got to do a planning phase, I got to do a launch phase. It's the measure and optimization. What happens after it goes live, and how do I make sure that all the work that I put into it is actually working? And I think that's such a great insight to recognize that, instead of doing 50 things at once, doing one thing exceptionally well and making sure that it is routinized and built into the business, you're just going to have much better results. So I think that's a great piece of advice.